So I actually had grabbed the two main components out of the pile of scrapped parts from the multi-hoe. Grabbed them yesterday and I started to move them over here, and then I ended up having to leave to go to work, ran out of time. So they're actually already on the they're on the loader of the Oliver, ready to be moved over. Just saw a chipmunk run into that opening on that arm right there. He's in for a rude awakening. Yeah, he's in there. Alright, so here's one of the arms where it's cut, and you can see that that's going to be the first box part that's going to attach. That's going to be slotted and slide onto the loader here, and then that's going to be the second section of the boom that's going to slide inside of it. Alright, so it's the first week in May, so it's pretty warm today. So let's see what kind of a cold start we get out of the old girl. Well, that's what that extremely low compression does for you. Huh. Barely gotten started and I already think there's going to be a design change in order. My original plan was to cut, because this is obviously got a real arc to it right there. You know, one possibility would be to slot this side, have this part be the part that slides on there, actually leave this the way it is, and then that would basically have this sticking up from the loader at a pretty high angle, which might not be bad. The problem with that is getting it on and off the machine, because when it's not attached to the machine, it's going to want to lay down on its side like that, and you can imagine I'm going to have to try and lift the whole thing up to get it on. So that's not really going to be good. So my plan was to basically cut out from here down that section. Alright, so I was going to cut this like right there and use this section right here. That's what I wanted to do. The problem with that is there are these two big plates welded on to the two sides of this. This is not a separate piece than that. This is one big piece, but then it's shored up by this big plate. So what happens is here I can cut through this with the plasma cutter. Here it's going to be much more difficult for me to cut through this with the plasma cutter, if doable at all. So I'm going to have to either limit my cut to right here. The problem with that, if I do that, that's only going to give me about 31 inches of length out of this usable. And you know, if I have, well, let's say 15 to 18 inches of it actually attached onto the loader, you know, that's going to only stick out about 15 inches, and then sliding into that is going to be my other boom piece right over there. Okay, so once that slides in, I'm going to have a pretty short mini crane here, which I don't like that. So I think maybe we're going to have to go back to the pile and see what else is over there. Well, not too good. I got another one of those arms over there, which is going to give me the same problem as what I just talked about, so that's not going to solve my issue. But anyways, those pieces aren't going to work. Well, that's not going to work. So I got the main boom here. Unfortunately, somebody, and at some point in the life of the multi-hoe, cut this big hole here. So what I could do is I could use this section of the boom right here. From where this big plate is welded on, I could cut right there along that line, and I could use from here down to here. Then I could actually, well, see, that's a solid piece at the end there. I would have to cut that whole end off so that my other piece could insert into this, inside of this. My problem is, got a pin right here, place for a pin to go through, so that's got a huge part on the inside there that's going to obstruct that, I think. I don't know if you can see down there in the dark, but actually that's wide enough that piece could go through. Matter of fact, I'm liking this because I could slide that in, put the pin right through there and have the pin go through here and the other piece, and that's a done deal. And if I cut this along here and I put my bird's mouth, so to speak, right here, that's going to slide over the front lip of the bucket right there. Then let's see what kind of links we got here. Alright, after I make my key cuts, I think we're going to end up with a 4-foot usable section out of this. Out of that 4 feet, I've got to come into the, I've got to have a certain amount of it that hangs into the bucket here. Well, let's say I go with, if I go with the full 2 feet into the bucket there, that'll only give me 2 feet of extension. Out of that 2 feet of extension, that'll leave me 2 feet sticking out, and then we're going to insert this other piece into here up to this pin. It's about 1 foot, so it'd be 2 feet plus, this is identical to the other one I already got over there that I'm going to use. See how long that is. That's 53 inches. Now let's call it 52 inches. And then 1 foot of that's going to be sticking into there. So that's going to give me 40 inches. 40 inches plus 2 feet. 64-inch total length that's going to stick out from the machine. It's not quite as long as I had hoped. But, you know, I don't really have many other alternatives here because I'm looking at, I've got the stabilizer arms right here. So I could cut these and use these to do what I'm trying to do. The problem is that, see, these parts right here are going to be in the way. So I think I'll end up having to actually cut these like here and bird's mouth these, and then once I take out, you know, a certain amount that's going to be into the bucket, then that leaves me very little room here. I could attach the boom through that pin there, but then the boom's going to want to just stay down unless I rig up some other way to keep it up. So that's not good. Plus, I'm actually trying to save these because I was looking at these and I was thinking, you know, because they're a matched pair and everything, I think I can actually turn these into my pallet forks that I want to make for the front loader. I mean, can't you just kind of visualize, you know, cutting out this section right here all the way down, just leaving this bottom plate attached to this big hunk? I mean, I think that I could, I think there's strong possibility of making some pretty sturdy forks out of this pair of arms right here. So I'm going to try and preserve those. And looking at the machine, what's left for steel in the machine, there's really no box type material left. It's all basically the largest pieces of steel left on this thing, which are plenty long. If I was to actually cut off that section there and everything, would be the actual frame rails. But the frame rails are, I guess you would call that like a C-channel. You know, it's kind of like a box only open on one side. So it's strong, but again, not really ideal for our purposes, or my purposes I should say, for today's project. So I'm going to have to pass on that. So we're going to go with that big boom. Alright, let's get a chain on her and drag her out of here. Alright, just so happens that when I laid it down with the loader, it kind of just balanced right like that on that arm, which is fine with me because I'm going to have to make a cut right here and then down the side. So I figure what I'll do is I'll make my cut across the top here and my cuts down both sides, and this is off the ground right now, but what's going to happen is as I make my cuts, it's going to want to flex this way and actually open up my gap a little bit, theoretically. Of course, that bottom edge is not going to be cut, so. But first thing I got to do is get all my gear out here and get ready, and then I also got to get some wrenches because I got to take off this rigid hydraulic line and the brackets that hold it on, because we don't want that anywhere near this thing when it gets hot. It's just going to smoke like crazy. Okay, I've got that, got those clamps unscrewed so I can remove this hard line. Those pieces of garden hose that we used underneath there, almost I guess to dampen vibration and protect the line from rattling against the boom here, best I can figure. But that's a redneck version there, right? Excuse me. This stud actually ended up just snapping right off. These two right here, I figured, well, I was going to bang them off with the hammer, just break them off. And then it occurred to me, maybe I actually should reserve judgment on taking those off just yet, because that's going to be the bottom. I'm wondering if I could mount a plate going across here so that when this is off the machine and basically on the ground waiting to be used, maybe I can put a bar across here and it act as a stabilizer to keep it from wanting to tip over.